he fights with the same ferocity with which I tackle all-you-can-eat buffets. Cory, the Sandman Sandhagen, how's it going, my guy?
I'm good, man. All you can eat buffet actually sounds pretty good right about now.
I'm so sorry to remind you, but maybe tell me very quickly, sorry to do this to you in the middle of a fight camp, but what's your approach to the buffet? Do you go with the proteins first? Do you get a sample of everything so you don't overload? No matter how I approach it, by like plate two, I'm just like on the floor heaving.
Oh, I don't load it up as high. I'll make like a lot of trips. I'll do like like if there's like three different types of foods, I'll usually plan on, making about three plates, and then I'll try to kind of like make the plate make sense and then take like a couple of visits. So yeah, it's pretty well thought out stuff actually when I hit a buffet.
By the time this comes out, we'll be on the heels of the BMF title fight, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. I was curious. I just wanted to play a little game here. If you could have, let's say, three dream BMF fights, because I very much think your style kind of fits the bill, who would it be? And the kind of only clause I have here is they have to be able to make like bantamweight or featherweight. So it could be a lightweight moving down, it could be a flyweight moving up, or it could be someone in those two divisions.
Oh, okay. In those two divisions?
Yeah. So
Uh,
as long as you could realistically fight them, you know what I mean?
between me and them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Uh, hmm. I think me and Yair,
Ooh.
me and Jan again, because that was like a great fight. And then who else is like that? Who else? Who else? Who else? And then Pantoja. I think Pantoja or Moreno, both of them are real good, and I think like kind of fit that bill a little bit too.
Those are so fun. I hadn't even taken the time to think about it, but I like those answers, especially Moreno, man. That guy is just such a gamer every time out.
I know.
Yeah,
I love
part
him.
of the culture. All right, man. On that note, I always put out a Q&A, and I actually had a number of people wondering. I don't not to shit on their question. It's a very valid question. I've never been super fascinated about like moving up in weight, moving down in weight. Like you're in the thick of it in the bantamweight title picture. But people were wondering: is featherweight something you'd ever consider in the future? Is it a weight class you think you'd be comfortable at?
I'd consider it. Yeah, I think that I'd be like undersized as like a 45er. Which like people think that I cut a ton of weight, but I think I cut probably less than the normal, which is still like a lot of weight, but it's probably less than the normal. I'm built like really narrow, like a lot of guys they're just built like stocky, like wider hips, wider like rib cage, and I don't really I don't have that. So my weight cuts aren't really that horrible. I would go up to 45. I think that my frame is big enough for it, where if I ever wanted to, I think that I would still be able to like tangle myself up in wrestling situations and then also like keep a decent amount of range. But as far as like power goes, I think I would be like outpowered at 145.
I was looking back on an interview you did ahead of the Marlon Chito Vera fight, and you kind of talked about how you learned so much about yourself through the process of that camp because you took this challenge and the threat of Cheeto so seriously. I am curious, what have you learned the most about yourself thus far in preparing for this main event?
Yeah, I think this one's really made me rise to a really different level, to be honest. Like when we were talking about taking the fight with my coaches, uh, they didn't love the idea of like fighting way down in the rankings, and I was like, look, like I will work harder than I've ever worked in my life. Like I really want to take this fight. Like please, it's not like they were super against it either, so it's not like it took much convincing, but I was like, look, man, like I will work harder than I've ever worked in my life. Like I know he's a good wrestler. I will work harder in that than you've ever seen me work. I know he's got good striking. I will figure it out and I will spend however many hours it takes to figure it out. And yeah, that's what I did. And it like made me rise to a different level. So like Umar just being so stylistically unaverage, like his striking is very not it's like not normal, it's very unique. And then it's paired with obviously like really good wrestling, but the wrestling is also a bit unique, at least from like me being on this side of the planet, So
Yeah.
it's been really fun to figure out, man. Like I think that I've become like a way better martial artist, and I've had to like big time clock way more like drilling hours and thinking hours than I've ever had to, do in the past. So that's been like really fun for me. It's been fun. It's been like super challenging. And like I'm really excited that I got to like learn so much and like figure out that style.
So, what was sort of like the fundamental emotion or reason that sort of spurred you to take it? Was it the promise of a title shot? Was it activity? Like, why were you? Because you've seen the feedback. Like most fighters in your position probably wouldn't be enthusiastic about this, but like you really seem to campaign for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like well, yeah, it was the title contender thing, you know, like when I sat down with the UFC, I was like, look, like I don't care. Like I really believe that I'm good enough to be champion. I really believe that I can beat anyone. So whoever it is next, I really don't care. But if you could promise me a number one contender fight, then we're good. Like I'll take whatever fight you guys want me to take. And they were gonna do Umar and Merab anyways for a number one contender. So I was like, okay, well, I'd rather be the person that gets to defend my
Totally.
spot personally instead of having, like having Merab do it, So I was like, yeah, of course. Like that's an absolute 100% yes. Like if it means fighting for the title next, then like that seems like almost like a no-brainer regardless of where they are in the rankings.
I saw you talk about in another interview how it's not explicitly that the Dagestanis are like the best wrestlers in MMA, but it's how effectively they use those grips and the way they control you on the mat that makes them so much better than their, let's say, American counterparts. Can you share anything about like what you've learned in the process of trying to like unpack these grips and what makes it? Why is it that the Dagestanis have such an advantage in that avenue of the game?
I think that so they all come from like a like a sambo combat art, like history, So a lot of those guys are growing up doing a lot of transitioning from the feet to the floor from striking. So they grow up essentially doing like a really modified version of MMA, on top of wrestling being like a really big giant part of their culture. So uh they just figured out how to hold people down better than the next, And I do think that I'll go on a little bit of a spiel here, but I do think that like the generation before mine in MMA had ideas and ways of thinking that don't win fights now. For example, like getting to the guard when you get taken down is like completely extinct almost. Like some guys do it and usually it doesn't work out for them. But that's like almost like an extinct way of thinking now. Like now it's like if you're on your back, you're losing, get up as quick as you can. So I think that it's like a lot of the American fighters and a lot of just like MMA fighters in general that have had like this circle of thinking for a really long time has turned it into continuing that thinking. And then you see people from the other side of the planet thinking in a different way, and it's like working better. So it's not a matter of like, is this side of the world better, or do they have better athletes? Do they have better technique? I don't really think that it's that. It's like, where's the thinking flaw in like your direction or your strategy or the decisions that you're making? Like, where is that playing a piece? And I think that I have like really good coaches. I think that I think for myself really well. Like I think about the sport all of the time. And I think that I can like kind of put myself in a category where I think a little bit more outside of the box than I think the typical UFC guy. And that makes me feel confident in fighting someone that I know is really good at winning. Like their style is super good at winning fights. And I think that I'm a good enough thinker to combat that.
You mentioned that the UFC was aiming for that Merab Umar fight. Very quickly, how do you think that would have? How do you think those two matched up had that fight happened?
That would have been an interesting fight. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure if that's true. That's what Umar said, but so that's a little bit speculative. But I do think that that was the case. But um, I think Merab likely would have won that fight. Like Merab just has such a gas tank and just like relentless wrestling, and that's just a hard style to deal with. And I think that Umar's style of wrestling, while it's definitely really good, it's not as energy efficient as a Merab's. So I think Merab would have just been able to wear on him.
I was just for kicks, I loaded up this old like MMA booking simulator that I used to play back in the day, and I booked the Merab Sandhagen fight. You won. He did not shoot for one takedown, which didn't seem quite right to me. Just a couple of things before we wrap up on some rapid fire. You have such a distinct style in MMA, and it's funny, like when I'm at the gym and you're watching newer guys start trying to kind of find their footing and whatever it is, jiu-jitsu, boxing, like you see them give up a lot of fundamental technique for trying to kind of be like fun and creative. What goes into developing your sort of unorthodox style without trending into being sloppy or lazy? Like, how do you kind of control the chaos?
Yeah, the number one value always has to be efficiency. So like if you're doing things that exit out of efficiency, or you're doing things that like the puzzle piece doesn't fit in certain circumstances, then you're just straight up doing bad martial arts, which is not the goal, right? So like uh number one is efficiency, and by efficiency it's like, does that make you win? Um and like, does it keep you protected, and does it keep you safe? So like that's number one. And then number two and number three, like you can start to be creative. You can start like making it as, as flashy as you kind of want after that. But if it doesn't check the first box of efficiency, then it's just bad martial arts.
Love it. Last thing before we finish up on some rapid fire, and in his defense, I know that Sean O'Malley like has a podcast, so he talks a lot. I don't know if the things making headlines are exclusively the negative things he says. We know how the online sphere tends to operate. But he said if he becomes champion, quote, Cory ain't getting the fucking title shot next. Does does Sean have a problem with you, or like what's do you have any idea like where this energy is coming from? And again, it might just be misrepresented online. I don't know.
Yeah. So whenever I kind of, because those things do pop up on mine, sometimes he seems indifferent, like when
Mm.
he actually is answering the question. So I'm like, okay, this guy's just kind of like answering the way that he's got to answer. But there are things about Sean O'Malley that I think are just like super, uh, like lame, kind of, like talking about things like you fight the worst guy for the most amount of money, like everything being like business decisions, all of that. It's like that like that I can't connect with that type of thinking at all. To me, that's like, those are ways of thinking that are just weak, and they're ways of thinking that are going to like trend into ruining the sport a little bit, in my opinion. Like,
Mm.
you should want to fight the best guy. Like, if you're here to be the actual world champion, like that's what we're doing. Like, I don't see this as like a business, really. I don't see it as like making a ton of money. Like, I make good money now. Like, I'm good. I'm not like wealthy by any means. Like, I don't have money that is gonna last me until I die. But like, how like the greediness and like the business decision things that happen in a lot of these like types of like ways of thinking, to me, are just like lame. And I don't think that passing on the message that you should fight the worst guy for the most amount of money, like that is just such like a weak way of thinking, in my opinion. And like, me being who I am, like when I hear an opponent talk like that, like it gives me so much confidence that when we do have to
Mm.
step into the cage together, like I'm going to maul you, because I've been trying to get ready to be the best in the entire world and take out anyone that's standing in my way. And you're thinking about trying to make a bunch of money. Like, that's like, that brings me confidence. So I don't really know if Sean O'Malley kind of like means those things, because I actually like Sean. Like, I think he's kind of like I've always had nice interactions with him. I think that he's like a really honest guy. Like, I really appreciate his honesty when he is answering things. But like the message of like it being a business, to me, is just like, that's like not martial arts to me. So I'm not really. It's like, he could think that way, but when we step in the cage together, I'm gonna maul someone that has that mentality.
The You're such a nice guy in the mauling thing. I love the sort of contrast there. And listen, I'm not gonna run with the Sean O'Malley is lame headline, but I hope you forgive me if someone else does run with that one. Sorry for asking the question. Okay, just to finish up on some rapid fire, I know that someone in the Q&A was wondering about the fight that sort of introduced Cory to MMA. Was it, for a Spawn or something like that? The real ones know. It's World Star Hip Hop that kind of spurred Cory's fascination with fighting in the first place. For those who missed it, which Kimbo Slice fight should fans seek out for the people who kind of missed the entire Kimbo era?
Oh man, it was the one where I mean, they were all mostly fighting in backyards, but It was the one where he was fighting in the backyard and he like literally punched the guy in the eye so hard that the guy's eyeball started like popping out of his head. And yeah, I don't know when you're like 13, 14 years old, you think that that's like the coolest thing in the world is like watching people actually fight and like know how to do it. So I used to be super into those. Me and my buddies used to watch those like all day, uh and then yeah, I guess one day I decided that I wanted to do
I accidentally sent my questions to your publicist this morning instead of sending them to myself, and I was just like, I really hope she doesn't see that question about the eyeball
it.
and think that I'm trying to do something weird and grotesque here. On that note, can you sort of walk me through the contrast of Cory Sandhagen watching Kimbo knock people's eyes out and the one that's, quote, chilling, demanding the world bring him peace, trees, flowers, clouds? Like, there's such an interesting duality, too, that I find that you express.
I don't really know how to yeah, I don't have that fully figured out myself either. I guess
Forgive us.
like for me, my entire life mostly has been like sports and how to like be better at sports. Since I've been in the UFC and since obviously a little bit before I got into the UFC, my entire life was about like winning and how to make myself a better winner and how to like train my body and mind to be better at winning. And that comes with like a whole lot of stress and that comes with like a whole lot of like unbalance. So that other side of things just makes me feel really centered and makes me feel really balanced and makes me feel like uh that I can take this thing that I'm a little bit obsessed with and then also use it in a way where it can benefit like my health in a way, like mental health, spiritual health, physical health, of course. And so yeah, I'm kind of trying to figure out how to like be Buddha and Michael Jordan in one lifetime. And it's, you know, it's a difficult thing.
I love it, man. It's always such a treat talking to you. I could do this forever, but I know we got to get you out of here. Cory, I want to leave you with the last word, so I'll do my part very quickly. Guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. If you're still here, please subscribe, tap the bell, thumbs up. Let us know in the comments section what BMF fights would you most like to see for Cory. Cory, if there's anything you want to let the people know, the floor is yours, my friend.
No, that's all good. Hey, I got some instructionals out right now that I've been releasing, and then I have a YouTube page that hasn't worked its way into the algorithm yet. So, uh, you know, it's Cory Sandhagen MMA. If you guys just want to follow those, I'm kind of trying to build those up a little bit. So, yeah, that's it.